transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord of birth after birth, from him ecstatic prayer emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his joy. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the ones of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us, and give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame spread all over the universe. And take shelter of the Lord Jesus. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada.
Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Thank you. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Raja Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Ashtarashota Shishima Desi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Hare Krishna and welcome to today's class of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will read from Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 51. The chapter is called Chanting the Song Sang by Lord Shiva. So I also would like to introduce myself because there are always different devotees in the temple. So my name is Loka Pavani Devi Dasi, and I've been here in this yatra for a few years now, I think, since 2016. I'm originally from Croatia, and I live here in Winterthur with my husband and do service as much as I can. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading the text 50. Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sankram mayadvishvam Navyavarta gabiraya Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sankramaya vishvam Nabhyavarta gabiraya Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sankarmaya vishvam Nabhyavarta gabiraya. If you would like to. Purara chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sakramaya vishvam Napriyavarta gaviraya Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudarodaram Prati sankramayad vishvam Nabhyavarta gaviraya. Ladies. Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sankramayad vishvam Nabhyavarta gaviraya. Purare chaka samvigna Vali valgudalodaram Prati sankramayad vishvam Nabhyavarta gaviraya. Pura, inhaling. Rechaka, exhaling. Samvigna, agitated. Vali, the wrinkles on the abdomen. Valgu, beautiful. Dala, like the bhajan leaf. Actually, it's banyan leaf. I always say bhajan. Udaram, abdomen. Prati sankramayat, cooling down. Vishvam, universe. Nabhya, navel. Avarta, screwing. Gabiraya, by deepness. Thank you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to 3 ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree, and when he exhales and inhales, the movement of his ripples appear very, very beautiful. The coil within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe sprouted out of it and yet again wishes to go back. Purport. The whole universe is born out of the lotus stem which sprouted from the navel of the Lord. Lord Brahma sat on the top of this lotus stem to create the whole universe. The navel of the Lord is so deep and cooling that it appears that the whole universe again wants to withdraw into the navel, being attracted by the Lord's beauty. The Lord's navel and the ripples on his belly always increase the beauty of his bodily features. The details of the bodily features of the Lord especially indicate the personality of Godhead. Impersonalists cannot appreciate the beautiful body of the Lord, which is described in these prayers by Lord Shiva. Although the impersonalists are always engaged in worship of Lord Shiva, they are unable to understand the prayers offered by Lord Shiva to the bodily features of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is known as Shiva Virnichinutam. That's from Bhagavatam 11.5.33. For he is always worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So the verse again. The Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to 3 ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree. And when he exhales and inhales, the movement of his ripples appear very, very beautiful. The coils within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe sprouted out of it and yet again wishes to go back. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatare Shatarine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Niranjana Swami Iti Namine. So, every one of you understands English, right? You don't need translation. Okay, just checking. So, we are discussing this song which is sang by Lord Shiva. So, I will talk a little bit about the meaning of what Lord Shiva said in this verse, which refers to the bodily features of the Lord. And then Srila Prabhupada a little bit explains how from this navel actually the whole universe sprout out, because I will explain how a little bit, but I wanted to make the topic of today's lectures a prayer, like the power of prayer, because this song of Lord Shiva is a prayer, and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is anyway full of prayers of various devotees, and I thought it would be practical for our spiritual life. So how it's important, and it's also one of the activities of devotional service, Vandanam, offering prayers to the Lord. So in that sense, some devotees became perfect just by reciting prayers, and the example of such a personality is Akrura, who satisfied the Lord by offering him prayers. So let's start first with what Srila Prabhupada actually mentions in this purport. So Lord Shiva, he is describing the beauty of the bodily features of the Lord in his prayer. And then Srila Prabhupada says how that is very important for us to notice and know, because by doing this, Lord Shiva is actually refuting the impersonalistic philosophy. So the impersonalists, they say that we merge into some kind of energy and that God doesn't have any eyes, any ears, any legs, and so on. But Lord Shiva is the one who's actually telling the opposite, that he's offering a prayer to the Lord, glorifying him in his bodily features, and by this he's telling us that actually God is a person. So impersonalists as such and their conceptions are wrong. And why is this important? Because the impersonalists are usually the ones who are following Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is the one who is connected to the impersonalists by his incarnation as Shankaracharya. So he brought the impersonalistic philosophy in this Kali Yuga, and he is considered to be an incarnation of Shiva. But by mentioning all of this, what Srila Prabhupada is doing is actually, whoever reads Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially if they come from this background, they can then understand who actually Lord Shiva is. And in this whole chapter, Srila Prabhupada is saying how Lord Shiva is the best devotee, one of the best devotees of Lord Vishnu. We all know that he meditates constantly. He's totally in samadhi. And this samadhi actually means that he's totally meditating on Lord Krishna. He's the object of his meditation. And he's actually serving him by his mind. And we also know that he's the one who, on his head, the Ganges is, he's a fountain for Ganges in a way, because he's stopping the Ganges from, in a way, being destructive towards the earth. So it falls first on the head of Shiva, and then it falls to the earth. So he serves the Lord in various ways. And also what Srila Prabhupada mentions in this chapter is how Lord Shiva also has his own sampradaya. So we know that there are 4 bona fide sampradayas in Vaishnavism, and one of them is Rudra Sampradaya. So it's the sampradaya where the whole knowledge is given by Lord Shiva. And you will speak about it, or you already spoke about it. I can't remember if I read it before this verse or after this verse, but it will be mentioned anyway. So in that sense, like, he's the leader of the Sampradaya. So in that sense, again, it is emphasized how he's really a great devotee of the Lord. And I love the story which is, I think, described in Chaitanya Mangala, or maybe it's not in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's Chaitanya Mangala, or this other book that I cannot remember the title at the moment. But how he relishes Mahaprasadam of the Lord. So I think Narada Muni brings him Mahaprasadam from the Lord from Vaikuntha, and then he doesn't even want to share it with his wife Parvati, and she gets really, really angry at him. But because he tastes the remnants of food of the Lord, he starts to dance in such an ecstasy that his wife has to pacify him and like tell him, like, please stop, because your dance is going to destroy all the creation, because it's so powerful. So in that sense, we can see how he's actually a devotee of the Lord. And he's also not an ordinary jiva like all of us, in the sense that he's the Tatastha Shakti, that he can be influenced either by material energy, which is external energy, or the internal energy, which is the spiritual energy. He's more like, there are like, I think in the canto first of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained how all of us, we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we possess his qualities, but in a minute quantity. But also it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam and also in Nectar of Devotion, how only Krishna has 100% of, I think, 64 qualities, but all the other personalities, they have a lower percentage of it. So Lord Vishnu has only 90% of these qualities, and then I think Lord Shiva is 80-something, I don't know exactly, and the Jivas are 70-something% of these qualities. So we can see in that sense of possessing these qualities, which are enlisted in the scriptures, that Shiva is between Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, in a sense. So he's quite different. And so more about who he is, about his expansions, because he also has expansions. You can read in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, where it is really explained into detail. So not an ordinary person, and he's also a spiritual master of the Prachetas here, because he's saying how, I mean, he was very pleased to see them, because they wanted to obey the order of their father, and they wanted to perform certain austerities. So he found their character, their qualities very nice. So he wanted to give them a benediction. So the benediction that he gave them is actually this song. So he said, yes, you go and you perform these austerities like your father wanted you to do them. But when you do them, I think they were supposed to perform austerities for 10,000 years because it was Satya Yuga. So it was possible at that time because the living entities then had a longer span of life. So for 10,000 years they were supposed to perform these austerities, and he wanted to, because he saw that they were devotees, so he was pleased with them, and he wanted to give them a benediction in this song, which is sang by Lord Shiva. And in the end he will say, like, which are the benefits of it for us as well, but also for them, when they will sing this song of glorification of the Lord. And this song is a prayer. So that's how we will come to the topic of today's discussion, the power of prayer. And we know that the most important activities in devotional service are Kirtanam and Shravanam. Actually, first Shravanam and then Kirtanam. First we have to hear the holy name, about the Lord qualities and everything, about his qualities and everything. And then we should actually repeat what we have heard. And in this way, this is called like a Bhagavad Dharma. By this we can get purified in this age. And this is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach. He came to teach us by his example on how we can actually accomplish the highest rasas, which can only be found in the spiritual world on the planet, which is called Krishna Loka, and especially the topmost rasa, and that is the rasa of conjugal love. And he was authorized as the Supreme Personality of Godhead to teach it, because the God is the one who gives the principles of religion. So he says that in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, where he says that he comes to establish the principles of religion and to satisfy his devotees in a way, or to save his devotees and to destroy the miscreants. And if ever is anyone who can teach us in the best way how to follow the Dharma of this age, that is Lord himself, and that's why he came in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is actually Krishna himself, but he came in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And he wanted to fulfill some of his desires, which he had, and I'm not going to go into them, but also like to establish the Dharma of this age. And he gave us Mahamantra. And Mahamantra is very much connected with the prayers, because even though Mahamantra is not different from Lord Krishna, and there are various philosophical explanations of it, it is also a prayer. So when we chant the Mahamantra, we are actually praying for service to the Lord, or please, Supreme Personality of Godhead, your energy, please engage me in your service. So that's our prayer. And I was reading one lecture of Radhanath Swami, who was actually talking about the power of prayer, and I really liked it, because he says that the reason why we are here actually is the prayer, because somewhere in our conscious or subconscious mind we were praying in a way to understand God. And when Krishna explains who approaches him in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that 4 types of people approach him. So the ones who want to gain something of him, the ones who are in distress, the ones who are inquisitive, and the ones who want to know the absolute truth, actually. But all 4 of them are considered great, and all 4 of them are considered pious, and all 4 of them, actually, when they approach with a prayer. Because if someone approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he wants to be free of distress, he approaches with a prayer. Oh, please, Lord, can you protect me, or can you please relieve me of this distress? The one who wants wealth or whatever he wants, he approaches the Lord for asking for something. So it's a prayer. And the one who is inquisitive, he also prays to know certain things. And the one who wants to really know the absolute truth, he also prays to the Lord that he reveals himself to him. So I was thinking about that, And I can also say that my spiritual life also began with a prayer, because I was quite unhappy. I was studying law and living with my mom, and my whole situation was like so like dissatisfying, and I know that I was praying like almost every day, like I can't take this anymore. There has to be something higher, you know. And so first I encountered Bhakti Yoga in another book, not Bhagavad Gita, but in a book of Yoga in Daily Life. So they have Hatha Yoga, Kriya Yoga, something else Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga mentioned in that book. So there were like people there on the picture, like with mridanga, karatals, and harmonium, but I didn't get it, what it was. But I liked the yoga principles, and I only went there to do some exercises. But they were also mentioning demigods like Lord Shiva and so on. So, you know, that's how it goes. And then somehow I met the devotees, and I was totally fascinated by devotees. But not because when I saw them on the street, I was not fascinated with them. I thought they looked very weird. But the philosophy was what fascinated me the most. And then you see that there was an answer to the prayer, that I got answers to all these questions that I got through the philosophy. For example, through the Bhagavad Gita. For me, Bhagavad Gita was really a revelation because it really talked about all the things that I was wondering in life, like why is someone poor, why is someone rich, why are you dark-skinned, why am I white-skinned, like why do you live there and there, why do someone is born blind and or an invalid and someone is healthy, like it just didn't make sense, you know. And why is there a war? Because now it's war in Ukraine, but at that time in the 90s there was war in Croatia and ex-Yugoslavia. So all these things were a little bit like, and like what is the meaning of life? For me it was like, okay, you go to school and then you go to work and then you work and then you go to and then you retire and then you die. I was like, oh my God. That's not life. So so I was wondering about those things. So everything starts with a prayer, and that's what Radhanath Swami also said. I mean, he said that. And if you read his book, The Journey Home, you can see that everything that is there is like his prayer. I mean, wherever he was in the world, he was praying. When he was in America, he was also praying there, being unsatisfied with his hippie life. And then he went to England, and there again, he was not satisfied, and he was praying. And therefore, him and his friend, as I understood, they prayed for God to show them another like road where they should go. So that's how he came to India, because somehow he got the signs from outside, from other people, or from Paramatma, like where to go. And that's how he met so many saints, which he describes in his book. And then in the end, he met Srila Prabhupada. So all of that happened because he prayed. And therefore, when he was even giving that lecture, he said, I'm here because I prayed. So the prayer made all of this happen. So in that sense, it's very important that we pray. Sometimes we forget to pray because we think we have Maha Mantra. And then we just chant because everyone explained to us that it's actually a mantra that we ask service, and that's great. But because we are not so pure, we all have these layers in our hearts. So we need help. So how do we get that help? By prayer. And as devotees, actually as sadhakas who follow the path of bhakti, we follow the footsteps of great personalities, right? And what do the great personalities do? They pray. So, and we have examples of it through Srimad Bhagavatam. And even like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, when he approaches Krishna, especially after he sees the cosmic manifestation of Krishna, then he really starts to pray. Like, please, Lord, I'm so sorry I treated you like a friend on an equal level because I didn't know who you are. Please be merciful to me and remove this form because it's making me really frightening, like it's scaring me. And then, of course, Krishna manifested after that his four-armed form, and then the this two-arm form, which he knew that Arjuna finds most comfortable and most pleasing. So everything is connected with the prayers, and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is in a way a prayer. I mean, it's a revelation of a philosophy, but prayer is very much connected to the philosophy. So sometimes, people say pray, but also to pray you need to have knowledge, because you need to know to whom you are praying and how to pray and what to ask for. Sometimes people today have various types of prayers. One prayer, that's what I found somewhere on the internet, I was reading about it, is like that is actually a prayer in a way. So this positive thinking, like we are having these positive affirmations that we repeat every day. So that's a prayer in a way. But you are not addressing the Lord at all. But it works because it has some power of intention. We have a free will, and also it's karma included here, because we wouldn't get those positive affirmations if it was not our karma in a way. So we can use them, and in that way maybe establish a higher consciousness, or in a way again receive what we want. But also sanctioned by Krishna, who is a Paramatma in our heart. But this is mentioned as an example of a prayer. So that's what people do. Actually, everyone in the world prays today, but I think that they are not praying because they cover it with like a covering which is not religious or spiritual, because they're afraid of it. I mean, I liked when Nanda Kumar would always say that everyone is afraid of the word God. But it's because of the culture and the history that we had in the world, where God was very much manipulated by others, so that they can gain something, starting from Spanish Inquisition to I don't know whatever happened in the history. So and also even today, I mean, everyone has their baggage. So because the institutions, the religious institutions, have their baggage, then people don't like them anymore. So in a way, it's justified, because if you want to surrender to someone or to something, this person has to be a good example. So if someone is not a good example, then it's very intelligent not to surrender to such a person. So it's like normal. But because of that, because we're all spirit souls, people created this new way of praying in these positive affirmations, but still they want to gain something. So this is one type of prayer. Another type of prayer is the one that we have in the church, in the mosque, in the temple, where people offer their prayers, but they usually want something for Krishna. So it's like they have a material motivation, that they want something from God. But that's not a bad thing, because as Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, 4 persons approach him. One of the persons is someone who asks something from the Lord, and that person is considered to be pious, because by approaching the Lord and engaging in some way in devotional service, which he does, even though it's not pure, but he engages in the devotional service, he will get purified eventually. So it's very good to encourage people to pray in that sense to God, because in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that whether one has no material desires or has a bunch of material desires, if he approaches the Supreme Lord, he will be successful. And one example of such a personality, he didn't have a bunch of material desires, but he had material desires, is Dhruva Maharaj. So Dhruva. And he approached the Lord because he was very angry, had his stepmother and father who didn't do anything. So he wanted revenge because he was not allowed to sit on the lap of his father. So he prayed to the Lord that he wants to have a kingdom even bigger than his grandfather. And his grandfather was Lord Brahma. So that meant like Lord Brahma is actually a king of the universe, because he's as a second creator creates the universe. So he wanted to have even something bigger than Lord Brahma. And he was very determined. And so Narada Muni even tested him, like, you're a 5-year-old boy, you should go home and play. This is something that you should do. But he was determined, and he said, no, I find your advices not suitable for what I want. Therefore, I go to the forest. So Narada Muni, when he saw him, he just wanted to give him a benediction because he saw his determination. So he gave him a mantra. And Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So do you know which mantra he gave to Dhruva Maharaj? Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he was chanting this mantra, and he got the darshan of the Lord. But he wanted something, so he prayed for something that was actually material. But when he saw the Lord, he realized that actually he doesn't want that anymore, that he only wants the Lord. And it is a quite significant moment in the story of Dhruva Maharaj, and that's why I said that we need knowledge for prayers, is that sometimes we really need to be like qualified, authorized, and so on to say perfect prayers for the Lord. And therefore, in order for Dhruva to have this ability, the Lord touched him with his conch shell on his head, and that's how he started to speak the prayers. So in a way he authorized him, or he gave him qualification to do so. And why do we need knowledge? Because first of all we need to know to whom we are offering prayers. So as we said at the beginning when I was saying how today people, they have this positive thinking thing, they don't address anyone, they address the universe. So it's quite impersonal, it's a new age stuff. But here, if you want to offer proper prayers, we need to know to whom we are offering, and then we can say, okay, the Catholics, the Muslims, the Jews, and every other religion, they accept God, so they offer it to God. But there's even higher perfection, like who is this God? What does he look like? What are his qualities? What is he doing? And so on. So this is something that is given to us in Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So we need knowledge even before we start chanting the Mahamantra, because most of us are not so elevated to chant it purely and have immediately the darshan of the Lord, to understand everything and for all the knowledge to be revealed in our heart, because the Lord is situated in the heart. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, he says that he gives intelligence, he gives remembrance, and he gives forgetfulness also. So in that sense we have to know about him. So that's why we have all these prayers. These prayers teach us, first of all, of the realizations of the devotees who offered the prayers, and they talk about who the Lord is, what are his bodily features, what are his qualities, and so on. So that's how actually, if you want to have a successful prayer, that's how you should do it. So Radhanath Swami, in his lecture, he mentions like the 4 elements of a prayer. And the first element of a prayer is the glorification of the Lord. So if you want to, that's how you approach him. And that's how we would approach anyone if we want something in our life. I don't know, if you want ask a favor from a friend, you will approach him and say, but you are the best and this and blah, 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 and so on. Can you help me? Or if you approach some, I don't know, very influencing person in a society, you will also glorify him in a way if you want something from him. So in the same sense, we glorify the Lord. Of course, in this material world, people glorify each other out of material motivation. But as we said, even if we do that to the Lord, we'll get purified because we will glorify him. So it's always for the benefit, for our benefit. So we first glorify him. We can talk about his bodily features, which are very beautiful, as Lord Shiva says in this shloka. So that's how the devotees address the Lord. And then what is also manifested in the prayers is the second element, and that is humility. So the person who approaches the Lord is always humble. So he glorifies him, but he also mentions his humble or very low position. And then he asks for a benediction, which he wants. And the fourth element is that he asks for forgiveness. So it doesn't have to always be that in a prayer, but these are like the 4 elements that can be found in the prayer. And when Radhanath Swami was talking about it, he was mentioning Shishashtakam. So that's why I took it as an example of a prayer. But we can have so many examples, like prayers of Srila Prabhupada, like the most famous prayer where he is coming to Boston. And this prayer, actually, I found it also like, yeah, I mean, we read it like it was meant to be published, but it was something very intimate that Srila Prabhupada offered to the Lord when he came there. We know that he came alone after, I don't know how many weeks of traveling on a cargo ship, after having two heart attacks, and then seeing where he's coming. I mean, he came from Vrindavan to United States, and he wonders, how are these people going to understand? And he also prays, please make them understand, use me as an instrument, let me, make me your puppet, let me dance, oh Lord. So this is a prayer of, we can say how everything started in the Western world, and we can say that by the power of Srila Prabhupada's prayer, we are now here, in a way, because it was his desire. And usually this, the devotee, when he prays, he never prays for his own benedictions or benefits. Usually a devotee prays to serve the Lord in a certain way, or to fulfill some goal for the Lord. So in that sense, he prayed. And also he prays for others. We can see that Srila Prabhupada in his prayers, he prayed for these people who are so covered by the modes of ignorance and passion that they become liberated, and that they become purified, and that they become the devotees of the Lord. And the examples of such prayers are also given in the scriptures. The most famous ones are, what is his name? I think it's Mukunda Datta, who was praying to take over the karma of everyone in the universe, and that he wanted to suffer the karma of others so that they can be liberated and go back home, back to Godhead. And the other prayer is the prayer of Prahlad Maharaj, who also prayed for the benefit of others, even when his father was torturing him and everything, and even when the Lord killed him, in a way, he was praying for the benefit of his father. So we can see like the mood in which the devotees pray. And I also wanted to mention Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose songs are actually prayers. And we can see, like, as I mentioned, you need to have knowledge also to pray. You can see that the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness is incorporated in prayers. So that's how we can learn about the Lord, we can learn about the mood in which we pray, we can learn for what do we need to pray, because we follow the footsteps of the great acharyas. So the person who also taught us how to pray is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because his prayer, or the instructions in these 8 verses which he left in Shishashtakam, are also an example. He glorifies Sri Krishna Sankirtan, and then he explains what's done when we chant the holy name congregationally, and how he gives benedictions. So, and then he glorifies again the holy name of the Lord, which is none different from the Lord. And then he says, but one should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. So, teaching us glorification, humbleness. And then he says in this verse 4 that devotee actually has no desires, and therefore he communicates that with the Lord. And then he says, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause's devotional service, birth after birth. So an example of what we should pray, and then he continues in the whole Shishashtakam prayer in that sense. So I want to connect this power of prayer also with one more thing, which is very relevant if anyone is maybe listening to this lecture. I wanted to inspire also people that that this is the month of December in which the devotees go to Sankirtan, to book distribution, and also it's very much connected to the prayer. So if we want others to receive Srila Prabhupada's books And if we want to distribute books, we know that we need to pray, because there's a whole other segment of it, how we are not the doers and how everything depends on the mercy of the Lord. But whoever went to Sankirtan on book distribution, they would always say that the prayer is the one that helped them to distribute books and so on. So they would pray to Lord Chaitanya and Panchatattva, and also they would pray for these people. And they sometimes, it was said how if a person really purely prayed for others, that they really get this benediction, that they get this knowledge, usually the Lord fulfills the desires of His devotees. But the desires of the devotees are always the desires of the Lord, because the Lord explains in Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam how He has all this opulence and all these qualities, but He doesn't want to enjoy them alone. He wants to enjoy them with others. And therefore, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, which I find it like genius, how the pure devotee knows the secret of transcendence. And the secret of transcendence is that the Lord wants to enjoy. And how does He wants to enjoy? He wants to enjoy by having relationship with others. So all these people who are here in this material world, they are sleeping, in the sense, in their relationship with Krishna. So by this knowledge that was given to us by the Acharyas and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can help in awakening of their relationship with Lord Krishna, and then making Krishna happy, because He actually wants to have relationship with everyone. Like He was one, but He became many in order to enjoy. So that's like the purpose. And it can be accomplished with a prayer. And even if we don't go on book distribution, but we just pray for people that they advance in spiritual life, this has influence. And it can help them also to advance in spiritual life. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was practical, because for me it was. We can use these things in our spiritual life. So maybe someone has questions or comments. I don't know how this works.
Haribol. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yes, I have two questions. Like the one question is like, I realized that I started to pray, and I realized that the things what I was asking and things are really happening, and Krishna's
Reciprocating.
reciprocating, yeah, anything. So I became a little bit afraid, because it is like really. You see that Krishna is interfering, like Krishna is doing, and at some point I also saw that I not really know what is good for me, and I saw that I'm actually really coward by ignorance, and maybe I'm not really wise about my prayers to ask what is really favorable for my spiritual life. So do you have a advice or tips how I can pray in a way this is like really good for me, because I don't really know what is good for me, what to ask.
Well, we can always ask for purification, but then there's a fear of like, can we handle it? But actually that's what we pray for. And there's a prayer which some don't want to pray for, but it's very powerful, and that is like Lord Narasimhadev. He can remove all the obstacles we have in our spiritual life. So if we pray to Him to remove them, then a lot of nice things can happen. But what is, like, whatever, you don't know what is good for you, but God knows what is good for you, Krishna knows what is good for you. So it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the Lord fulfills all the desires of His devotees, and the material ones He fulfills in such a way that they don't desire them anymore. So even if you have a material desire, and which is not maybe good for you, then it will be shown in your life, and automatically you will have a realization in your heart that maybe you don't want it anymore. And it's very good to be honest, and it's very good to express all the desires, because if you if you put them under the table, they will come out eventually. So you have to deal with everything very honestly, and let Krishna work in that sense. And you can also come in front of the Lord and say like, oh look, I have this anartha in my heart. I cannot get rid of this anartha in my heart. Can you please help me? And He will definitely help you, So, but sometimes we are afraid. We are afraid to let go of things to which we are attached, or we are afraid to be honest, like of things that we are attached to. But there's no need for it, because eventually it will come out. So we have to get rid of this fear and understand that Krishna is our well-wisher, and actually if we have a spiritual master is our well-wisher. And also, if we don't know what is good for us, then we surrender to the spiritual master and we follow what he says. So, I don't know if that's good for you.
I have also a second question.
Yes.
About now praying for others, like maybe for devotees or whatever. Sometimes I find when some devotees are in certain situation, I find for myself it is sometimes a little bit complex to understand their situation, because like I don't know what is like going on there. Maybe this situation where they are the exact situation where they need to make advancement, or even it is a really difficult time for them. And then you want to pray for them, but sometimes you want to pray like that, like maybe you pray exactly the opposite or whatever, That's why I also a little bit sometimes become a little bit conscious about what I should pray for others, because I don't know what to pray for them. Maybe it is that what they need. It's just like also really complex to understand what to ask and what to say.
Well, usually people say like, please pray for me, so because of this and that, or please pray for me. That's easy. But if when we don't know what other people want, usually we pray what we want for them. And that is like, I mean, you cannot make a mistake that you want to pray that the person becomes a devotee, because you know that will definitely benefit the person in like every aspect of their lives, so that he can understand. I mean, of course, we can also pray like if someone is ill for health. It's nice when people get positive energy, and often during the pandemics we would pray for devotees who had difficulties and so on, and they would always say how it was that they felt the prayers. I mean, everyone feels the prayers, everyone feels the positive energy and so on. That's one thing. And the other thing is that if you pray for the others, it is easier for them to advance also, because the Lord always fulfills the intentions and the desires of His pure devotees. Even we are not pure, but doesn't matter. We can say like, but we really want, it's like a good intention for people. It's like Prahlad Maharaj, he prayed, maybe you know it better, that verse that he prays for the benefit of everyone, that all the envious people be pacified. And if you know that, I don't know it now exactly how it goes, the verse, but he has this beautiful prayer for, like, in a way, peace in the world and peace for everyone. So that's a good thing to pray about. It's always beneficial. Thanks.
One comment: when we pray to others, we must understand that we can remove the free will of a God. His example is when Srila Prabhupada was ill. Когда заболел? His disciples prayed for Prabhupada and he gave him a prayer.